Shaitanirrajim, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, Jiayanu, Pakhairagale, Ni Hao, Churushumme, Washpale, Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Ola, Bojor, Privyet, Kaifahal, Haleshuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasar, Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabi, Bhalli Kere, Hosh Galdin, Anayo Sayo, Huya Mora, ladies and gentlemen, Chivato, Chihal, Yud, and Kalimera, and a very warm welcome to PTV World. Thank you very much for tuning in. You're definitely watching World this morning. The name happens to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and with me, I'm very lucky to have been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Ms. Hajar Sati. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well, that you're ready to kickstart your week or Tuesday with us. But having said that, first things first, hello Hajar, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. Jazakallah khair. So, I know you have something very important to share, but this suddenly cropped up in my mind and I've really felt like sharing it because nowadays I'm reading Elif Shafak's book Blackmail, and I've always been a fan of Elif Shafak because the way she describes Istanbul, and I'm a big fan of Istanbul because it is one of a cosmopolitan city, a transcontinental city which joins two continents, Asia and Istanbul, the Europe, and the way she describes Istanbul, it's really amazing. Her descriptive power is really amazing, and there was this one particular anecdote in that book that I really felt like sharing. So in Turkish tradition or in Ottoman tradition, the person who teaches you is called Hoja. Yes, Hoja. So there was this one Hoja, and he was really into the spiritual or the aesthetic traditions also, and he was working in a field which was his own field, and he after toiling and laboring with the agriculture, he sat down behind a tree and he sat to God and he actually complained about it, right? I really don't understand your mysterious ways and how you work, because you grow a watermelon, which is a very heavy and plump fruit, on a very frail stem, and you grow walnut on a very strong branches of a tree. So what is the wisdom behind it? And suddenly there was a huge rush of the wind and a walnut, because he was sitting beneath a walnut tree, and a walnut fell on his head, and then obviously he rubbed his head because it's a sort of a heavy.
If it was a watermelon.
Yes, and then now I understand your wisdom, because if watermelon had fallen on my head, I wouldn't survive. So certainly there is an inherent wisdom behind way the nature works, and everything is in its place, especially when it comes to the nature, right?
I think, Ajay, that's a wonderful story that you've shared with our viewers in 46 different countries as well. But having said that, I just before you spoke about it, I could actually remember that this book I read, it was by Mr. Khalid Hussaini, and he wrote so wonderfully well about Afghanistan and how there was this girl who was actually married to a different man, and so I was fascinated by the way he was expressing how Afghanistan was, and it was beautiful. But having said that, there's just one simple question I have for you today, because this is something which I read yesterday, and it said that if you lose your money in life, you lose nothing.
Okay.
If you lose your health, you lose something.
True.
If you lose your character, you lose everything.
That's
what is
true.
your take on this?
That's very true. I think there was this one wonderful quote in I think English literature book, in which mentioned that it takes years and years of the toil and labor to build your character, but it takes 2 minutes or maybe seconds to shatter it. So be very careful about how you function, how you behave around the people, because one single mistake, it can ruin your entire character, and I think that's a big blow to your entire life.
Exactly. And having said that, I think, Haja, because when I went to university, that was the time when I certainly have worked on my character development or personality development as well.
Okay.
And I think that education certainly will contribute towards your character, because when we speak about the morals or the norms or the culture we belong to or the culture we represent, it's mostly, I think, it comes from from very diverse cultures in the first place, because imagine that you're in a university, you're in a place, you're in a college where people from different walks of life will come in, they will have different representation of their culture. I mean, imagine over in Pakistan, so I was in Air University, which is an Air Force run or Air Force governed university as well.
Yes.
So, they were very careful about discipline, so imagine that, boys being boys. I know that you do not like this statement as well, but imagine, so we were supposed to wear a tie, that was a time when I actually kind of made sure that I have the right combinations as well. Even today, even today I was feeling whether this grey tie is going to go with this maroon suit or not. But I was like, okay, I think that it's going to go. I mean, on TV, you can pretty much pull on everything as well. But having said that, Hajar, now how many times, we have come across people who've actually studied abroad and are really good to do in life, alhamdulillah. And it's not just that. I think when you go, you get that maximum exposure, which you certainly need, and it is the requirement of this day as well. well. But having said that, what are the best possible options that you can actually opt on? Can you get scholarships? I think that's what we are talking about. And for everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, this expo we are talking about has actually already taken place in Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. And the best part is that we certainly want to kind of shed light on that because it brings us more opportunities of learning. How to do so is something we will be discussing with a wonderful guest over here inside the studio. So Aja, without any further ado, would you like to introduce our worthy guest today?
Yes, I would like to introduce them, but before you say any further, I just wanted to add to the conversation because you mentioned about the discipline and obviously the suited, booted and the ties need to be matched with the suit. So it has more to do with the business schools and not with the forces run university, because in my school we were in the NBS, which was NUST Business School, and we had the same sort of restrictions.
Because that's the dress code. Your university is even in...
No, I'll tell you. Because we were in the NBS, in the business school, there were a lot of restrictions. But when we had our own, because I did the mass communication, own social sciences school, we didn't have those sort of restrictions. Or engineering schools didn't have those sort of restrictions, because I think they're training you when you go into the corporate culture, and because you primarily belong from a business. So your attire has a way of communicating to other person, not in terms of the socio-economic status, but also in terms of the aesthetics, right?
But no matter what, I think that even when for our engineering classes, they were supposed to wear a tie. They had to come in because without a tie you would be fine.
Okay, then that was the university specific thing, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's why I named my university as well. But having said that, obviously it was a great opportunity to learn over there. But now, ladies and gentlemen, other than Pakistan, what other possibilities you can have? Because a lot of people, obviously from Pakistan, live in the United States of America. There are a lot of students who actually travel every single year to go and study over there so that they can have a brighter future. To talk about this, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by
Mr. Yuan German, who happens to be Cultural Affairs Officer at the US Embassy, Islamabad. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right. So joining Mr. German, we have Ms. Jamila Abdullah. She happens to be Associate Director, International Admissions and the Kent State University, US. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you.
Walaikum assalam. And lastly, we have Mr. Raldi Mariano. He happens to be Assistant Director, International Marketing, Cascadia College. Thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So it's wonderful to have you all over here. And the best part is that we're going to, I feel like celebrating, and it's because of the fact that all of you people, these amazing, beautiful faces early in the morning, bring us good news that there are more opportunities available for people to go study and explore. But having said that, let's talk about this expedition which has already taken place in Karachi, Lahore and Islamabad. In Islamabad, it was on Sunday. I believe it was from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. as well. But having said that, I think it's Hajra's question, and we were in debate and we were talking about it as well, so I'm going to pose it, and that is that in this era of internet and technology, why do you think that we really need to have expeditions for people to come and learn about universities, or what other opportunities are available?
Yes,
if that's not a very hard question, please.
I mean, I'll go first. So I think actually, yes, it's true that we have access to the internet. You can find information about universities, about opportunities and scholarships. But the reality is there's nothing better than an in-person connection. That's right. When you go to these exhibitions, expos, you get to meet university representatives. You get to talk to them about the school. And so when you make that connection, you start to feel like a connection to the school itself. So it doesn't replace the in-person relationships that you can build during these expos, because they also serve as a networking opportunity. While online, it's really just a computer feeding you information, but you don't really get to see the people associated with these universities.
And how many universities were representing, and how many times does this expo take place? Can you please share a bit of detail as well?
So I believe the expo happens twice a year, and they go throughout South Asia. Right now they're in Pakistan, or they just finished on Sunday the expo here. And I believe about 20 plus universities are represented. They're both community colleges as well as four-year colleges. Wow. Because we're trying to promote both community colleges, because they're a more affordable option at times, and they're just as important, just as high, you receive the same high quality education. But we also want people to understand the differences between the community colleges and the four-year colleges, because they're both good options.
And you're a natural on TV, Even though he did tell us that it's the very first time that he's on television, but you're a natural and you're doing a wonderful job.
All right, well, thank you so much.
So what exactly is the difference between the four-year colleges and then the community colleges?
Well, actually, I think they have my colleague.
I think I'm going to move on to Raldi for that as well.
Sure.
So Raldi, please can you, for our viewers,
Right.
even though we have viewers in 46 different countries, but can you please explain to us? Obviously, we do understand, pre-graduation and everything, but what
right.
is with the community colleges?
So I think there's a lot of unawareness with community colleges. In the United States, after high school, an associate's degree is the degree that's often overlooked at, because many advisors from the high school level are always pushing for universities and bachelor's degree. But community colleges kind of come in as an affordable means. Not everyone is always going to be able to afford the high cost of tuition of universities. And it becomes a all or nothing situation for students, whether they pursue the higher education or not. And the big difference for community colleges is that they are affordable, they're about only 2 years, and we often are transfer specialists, so that wherever they want to go, they can still pursue that bachelor's degree in the future.
Wow, in the future. So,
Yeah.
so don't you think that going to a community college might be a waste of 2 years, or do you think that you get to community college first, and then when you go to university, you will certainly have a few subjects exempted, and then you continue to learn for another 2 years only?
Yeah.
Is that how it is?
So commonly, at least in Washington State, where I'm from, the first 2 years of higher education at post high school is often general electives. Even
Okay.
for myself, when I went directly to the university, it's a lot of math, English courses, and general electives.
Yeah.
At a community college, you can do exactly the same curriculum at a much more affordable price.
Wow.
We are an entry point and accessible point to higher education for all of those students who are thinking that it might be too costly for them to pursue education.
Wow.
So coming to Ms. Jamila, so you primarily deal with the international admissions, and we've also seen that it's not just about studying there. There's also community of interest there, where international students remain engaged even after coming back to their own host countries, and then they stay engaged. So what sort of benefits do you think this can offer them in terms of cross-cultural exchanges?
Yeah, so during your university study, you're given a lot of opportunities to really be engaged on campus. I think the U.S. educational system really supports just beyond studying, the books, that we really like students to get involved, do internships, work on campus, and then that leads to post-graduation opportunities, because international students can work for up to a year after they graduate in the U.S., and then up to 2 more additional years if they're in a STEM program.
Right, right. So, Yuan, coming back to you, I was having this conversation with Shahzad before the show started, and I really wanted to deconstruct the GRE test, the TOEFL test, because I feel that every 5 years we have to take this new test. And then what is the philosophy behind it? Because I don't think so one can forget English so easily after 5 years, and obviously for a country like Pakistan, where the rupee has degraded a lot and the dollar is really expensive, and I think our official language is English, right? So I think there should be some sort of exemption given to the country like Pakistan, where the English language is an official language, and giving the GRE and the TOEFL test again and again is not just very heavy and expensive for the pockets, but I also believe that it really shrinks a lot of opportunities for students like us. So what do you have to say?
And you can bear witness to how wonderfully she speaks
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And Shahzad too.
So yes, it's actually a great question. The universities are the ones that actually create the requirements for the GRE and the TOEFL. And so it's just to set a standard. You have students from all over the world applying for universities in the US. They're very competitive. And so the reason the GRE and the TOEFL exist is in order to create that standard, to make sure that there's transparent and fair for the people that are applying to these universities. I can only speak from from the US government perspective, where we have various fellowship opportunities, and some of those fellowships, like for example, the Fulbright, do require the GRE.
That's true.
That's because when you receive a Fulbright, it's the U.S. government is paying for you to attend a university in the United States, which is the GRE is required by that university. We understand it is an obstacle. In fact, we know that 50,000 rupees, I think it's what the GRE costs here in Pakistan, is an obstacle for many families. And we want to make sure that financial obstacles are not a reason why people are not applying for universities and fellowships. So we are actually working with our partners to find ways to make sure that we can make this more these opportunities accessible for everybody from Pakistan, and we're finding ways whether to give a voucher, to make some exceptions. But at the moment, because it is required by the universities, it's very hard for us to navigate that.
Exactly. And having said that, I think there's a later part of the question too as well, which is that why do we actually have to reappear after 4 years or 5 years time as well? You know, because if we have done it once, we can do it twice too. I mean, that's not a problem. But why pay 50,000 rupees
I think
again?
Ms. Jamila is the best candidate to ask that because
Yeah.
she deals with international admissions.
So I think it goes back to kind of what you said about standards is we do have a general set of standards, but I do want to kind of touch on this because I really think it's important to talk about how testing is changing in the US. And a lot of universities are actually waiving GRE and GMAT requirements depending on the programs and which university you're going to. So it is all about which university you're choosing.
Right.
And for English proficiency, we do accept other tests aside from the TOEFL. So a lot of universities are now accepting other tests like IELTS and Duolingo. And this is to give students an opportunity for other tests, but also a lot of us do have like waiver requirement or waiver opportunities as well. So we always tell students to have this conversation with their university representatives and ask if these tests will be required.
Right.
I think that's wonderful. But having said that, you know, because for all of those people who actually do want to study in the United States, I think that the best part is that, you know, they might have attended the expos as well. But what I believe is, you know, I think it should be their most top priority, and that is that, you know, they should actually know what they want to get themselves into. You know, because over here, you know, we are relevantly new to international relations and, you know, all of these new disciplines coming in, and people certainly want to kind of have that grip because the exposure is at large out there. You know, everybody's got internet. So do you at the same time counsel them that, okay, we believe that, you know, that you are suitable for this kind of a course, and that's where you will certainly find your future bright? Please.
Yes, that's the goal of these exhibitions. So we get to have one-on-one conversations with students. We get to ask them questions in return to them asking us questions, and we really get to know their goals, what they want to study, what's within their means as well. And this is how we're able to provide that information to them and counsel them personally.
Right, thank you so much. So moving to Roldy, we wanted to ask you about the cultural shocks because obviously moving from one culture to another culture, it's not just about the study, it's about also experiencing the food, the atmosphere, the topography, and all of the different factors. And I think because of the Netflix, because of the, I think, internationalization of this mass media, we are very aware of the American culture and because their movies are very familiar. But obviously when students move to another country, to another culture, they do experience the cultural shock there. So how to diminish that feeling of cultural shock there?
And before you answer that, you know, I think that it's the other way around, because I think we live in a cultural shock here rather than in US as well. Because imagine that we are very strictly administered by our parents, you know, in Pakistan, but when we go outside, I think that's all freedom. That's what we like, right?
Too
Please
much
go ahead.
liberty and freedom and unbridled access to a lot of things can, you know, I mean,
Yeah, please go ahead.
I think the biggest thing about culture shock is expectation. So because of the media and things, the movies, videos that students watch before coming to the US, they kind of create a vision of what they're expecting. But I can guarantee you that where I'm from and where Jamila is from, the culture is quite different. And the US is so large that culture is represented so differently in each and every city and state that, yeah, I think for students to have a general universal understanding of what the US is, they have to break that first.
And thank you very much for saying that as well, because, you know, for people who are out there, I think, you know, because for the very first time when I went to Vegas, I had a very different image of Vegas myself, ladies and gentlemen.
and which
But
was?
But when I went to, I thought that, you know, it's going to be party everywhere, and that, you know, hip life and whatnot. Everybody's going to have very positive vibes, which they did. But you know, I could see people on the tails, you know, for, I don't know, 12 hours straight and whatnot. But having said that, ladies and gentlemen, I think Roldy has actually hit the nail on the head as well. But having said that, let's talk about the prerequisites of the community college, and what do you think that people really need to qualify for, and how will they be admitted within one of the community colleges you were representing?
Right. So at community colleges, our kind of requirements are a bit different from that of universities. They are less strict. So we are not one to be exclusive just because of financials or anything like that. higher education should be accessible to every single person who wants to pursue more education. So our, for example, waiver fees, we were just talking about that. With Education USA, we are waiving all application fees. We have at the Cascadia College, the community college level, we have affordable tuition, cost of living. We have scholarships as well, but we don't need to hide our kind of cost of tuition through more scholarships if the tuition is already affordable. So I think we just want to be incredibly inclusive of even anyone who wants to learn more.
And what figures are we looking at, when we talk about affordable tuition fee, what figure are we looking at?
Sure, so I'm going to speak for the Washington State in general for community colleges there. We're looking at a cost of attendance of about $20,000 US.
For 2 years?
For 1 year of academic study, and the tuition of that is about $10,000 US on average, which is quite below the means of many, many universities and other community colleges.
That's true.
Yeah.
So moving on to Mr. Yuan. So this was actually Shahzad's point of view, and I really liked it, and I wanted to share it with you because he mentioned about that how obviously these expos provide an opportunity for students to go to the US and then have the education. And obviously the point of having the education is so that you can get integrated back into the good jobs in the markets. Primarily, obviously, there are a lot of secondary purposes to it. So I was, before coming to this show, I was researching about it, and I was watching a very interesting conversation in which they actually mentioned that how in Tunisia, so there are a lot of exchange programs of America which are also going there, and they've helped educate a lot of Tunisians back in America, and then they went back to country and they were employed there. So in this era of global inflation where there's so much unemployment, I don't think so these exchange programs offer you a way, a short way of getting the employment. So what is your perspective on that?
Well, one thing I would say first is Pakistan, for example. For the last 70 years, Pakistan has been one of our most important partners when it comes to expanding cultural, educational, and professional opportunities. In fact, just in Pakistan alone, we have over 40 different types of exchanges.
Wonderful.
And some of the largest exchange programs in the entire Department of State are in Pakistan.
And why particularly Pakistan, if I may ask?
I mean, it just goes to show the U.S. Really cares about Pakistan. In fact, the U.S. government here and the U.S. Embassy, we send about 800 Pakistanis a year to the United States on all of our exchanges. And the reason we do so is because we believe in investing in people. People-to-people ties is what's really going to, strengthen that bilateral relationship between the United States and Pakistan. And if more Pakistanis are exposed to the United States, they get to learn our culture, they get to learn, our higher education system. They're able to bring those ideas and that different perspective here back to Pakistan and really change the minds of people who may not have been exposed to the U.S. or have preconceived notions of our country. And so I think to answer your question about when they come back and do they find jobs, we find that a lot of the people that go on our exchange programs paid by the U.S. government actually have a good, have opportunities later on and find really good jobs when they return because they have ideas, they've been exposed to different ways of doing their work, or they've become better experts in their field. And so they're actually highly sought out because we have here in Pakistan, we have about 37,000 alumni who have been on our USG exchange programs. And a lot of them are in government, they're entrepreneurs, they're lawyers, they're journalists. So we do find that when we do invest in people and we invest through these exchange programs, there's a lot of opportunities.
And are you in contact with all of these alumni?
Yes, we are. We have a network and we have a database. And so all of our 37,000 alumni are there. Every time we have an event or we are asking for expertise or we have a U.S. policy priority, we turn to our alumni. To help us.
I think it's wonderful and great as well, but for people who are out there who would certainly be applying or going to these expeditions as well, I think what you certainly really need to know is that, that going to a university is seriously you working on yourself. And if you are going to work on yourself, ladies and gentlemen, one way or the other, inshallah, in life, you will be doing better as well. But having said that, I think at the same time, I would want to move on to Ms. Jamila over here, because when we talk about the prerequisites and the admissions and the finances and student visas, you are the one, who will be answering all our questions as well. So first up, obviously, because we do have, FSC over here, which happens to be the Higher Secondary Education Commission, and, that's how we get it. And then we have the Higher Education Commission itself. So first, from colleges, are we only looking at people who've actually qualified in A-levels, or do you think that it goes back to our board examinations as well? And do you accept that? Number one. Number two, then do we really need to get into, or do you really need to testify whether the one can actually understand or speak in English as well? So, you know, let's
The criteria, general criteria, yeah.
Yeah, so luckily every university has different standards because we have over 4,000 different colleges and universities in the United States. But definitely I can speak on behalf of my institution, and we do accept the board examinations. We treat them very equally to a student who has done an IB curriculum or a different type of curriculum in their school. So generally,
International Baccalaureate is relatively very new over here.
yes, and we see a lot of it, but we also see a lot of students who don't do it. And we still give them the same opportunity to come to the university and study. So that's one of the things that we do is, again, going back to kind of what Raldi said, is we're creating opportunity for everyone.
True.
Also,
So what percentage in board examinations?
there isn't a specific percentage that would be required for all universities. We generally just look to see a strong academic background.
Okay.
And then, of course, those standards could vary by university.
All right.
So that's one component that we look at. And then we look at, of course, the English proficiency, as well as some universities may look at goal statements, recommendation letters, and other application components as well.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. But having said that, you know, because this is one of my original stories, and that is that, when I used to go to school or college, I wasn't really a very great student, and, I wasn't good at maths and whatnot. And I was like, I think that I'm actually going to struggle in university as well. But imagine, guess what? Because as soon as I got into applied sciences, and one of my teacher who was an Ivy League professor, he told me that, okay, whatever question I ask, I do not want you to reproduce word by word what's written in the book, but rather if your answer can convince me, you are actually going to get full grades. And that's what exactly happened. And imagine that in my scholarship, I had, in my university, I had 3 scholarships to myself. I had a CGPA of 3.4 as well. But that's something, do you think that you would analyze, or universities in coming days would analyze that, okay, that the student might have the capacity to do better. They might not have some good background from their education system, but we are going to take a chance with this student. Can universities do that too as well? Because there are a lot of people who are very smart and bright.
We do that, and
Wow.
that's why we look at every component of their application. So students have the opportunity to kind of talk about that in their essays and their personal statement letters. That's why their recommendations can also add information and kind of tell us about the student's background. And that's one unique part of the U.S. education system as well, is that you don't have to come from a perfect background. You can easily, we have a flexible education system. You can change your major very easily within the first 2 years of university if you have decided that you want to take a different path. So that's one of the benefits of the U.S. is that we look at more than just one component of the application.
And do you really need to check whether we have enough finances to support our education? And God forbid if the bank statement is just not very right. Well, how does it happen then?
So that is a requirement in order to get the Form I-20 or the immigration document that you use to apply for the student visa. We do look at your bank statement, and we do generally analyze that. Every university will require a different amount, so kind of like how Raldi talked about what community colleges require would be different maybe from a university, but there are so many universities located all over the United States, so that cost is going to vary. And then keep in mind that there's scholarships and other things that we incorporate into the final amount that we will request from the student before we're able to give them that document.
And okay, so once we've admitted ourselves into a university and after 1 year time we think that okay, we might need to go to another state, another university, so the university you're already studying in will actually help us go to another university?
Yes, you can transfer in the U.S., and that's where if you decide you want to change your major, maybe the school you're currently studying at doesn't have that program, you can easily change to go to a different university, and your credits and everything might be able to transfer over as well.
Wow, that's wonderful. And same is the case with community colleges as well?
Yeah, I think what I wanted to add on is that for the first 2 years of your higher education, you're going to be very confused. You're not, it's a very difficult position we put students in at the age of 18 or 20 to decide your life and career. And even for myself in my first 2 years, I went from engineering to business, eventually to economics, where I did. And so that's why at a community college, that's where you're free to explore different fields. And then at the 3rd and 4th year, you transfer and have a little bit of better understanding of where you want to take your career, and you do not have to take a financial hit to actually kind of explore a little bit.
True.
That's true. So I think leaving behind the familiar and plunging into unknown opens you a lot towards the cross-cultural exchanges, and obviously it gives you fresh perspective to look into the different people's lives and community living and whatnot. So to pontificate more on the cross-cultural exchanges and what is the scope of this expo, is it just limited to the students, or it can be expanded to the teachers, the professionals? We will talk more about it, but after a short break.
Exactly, and they've been out there, you know, going to different restaurants as well, so let's check that out too as well. Good morning.
Welcome back, and before going on to the break, we were obviously talking about the cross-cultural exchanges, and obviously it's not just limited to the education. So this expo has an expanded scope. It's not limited to the student exchanges. It's also incorporates the teacher exchange programs and the mid-professional career programs. And obviously when you go to US, you're exposed to a lot of modern pedagogy, critical thinking, and a lot of other stuff. So Mr. Yuan, coming back to you, can you please elaborate or pontificate over the scope of this program? And we were having a very interesting conversation regarding the scope for the journalists there, and what sort of programs do you offer for the journalists?
Because you happen to be the prodigy today.
So at the U.S. mission here in Pakistan, or in general the U.S. government through the State Department, we have various exchange programs, not just for students, because we do have educational ones for high school, graduate, undergrad, but we also believe in investing in professionals.
Right.
So we have one program that we have here is called the Humphrey Fellowship, and this fellowship is a one-year program to send mid-career professionals to the United States. Whether you're a journalist, you could be a lawyer, you could be an expert in IR and international relations. So the point of that program is to send you there, meet your U.S. counterparts, learn about their experiences, how that particular field in the U.S. works, and then you come back to Pakistan and return to your job. So you already have to have a job here in Pakistan in order to go on this program. We also have the International Visitors Leadership Program, which is the IVLP. This program, we send professionals from all fields, similar to the Humphrey. And basically it's a 3-week program. You go to the United States and you meet your U.S. counterparts. So for example, when we do an IVLP related to journalism, we'll send our journalists to the U.S. They'll get to meet other journalists. They'll learn about techniques of journalism in the United States. They get to meet producers. They get to learn about how the U.S. does print versus television, newscasting. So those are the opportunities that are afforded to professionals. We also have another opportunity, is for professors. So there's this Fulbright teachers assistantship. So basically it's for younger teachers. Basically they're just starting their career. They go to the United States. They actually teach Urdu or Pashto. And in return, they take courses in English literature, and they learn those professors, those skills on how to be professors, and then they come back to Pakistan and they teach English literature or English language in return.
So it's a very holistic approach towards, you know, how it can actually benefit a lot of people out there as well. But I think for me, I would always, I would want to be on Steve Harvey's show. I think that's it. Jimmy Fallon or Ellen for that matter as well, because we grew up watching them as well. Having said that, you know, because you've been here now, you know, you've been to Karachi, Lahore and Islamabad, so let's get into some other discourse as well or conversation. But having said that before, Ms. Jamila, very quickly, you know, so what kind of costs are we looking at when we speak about a 4-year program in a university? And then obviously it's going to vary, so you will be speaking about your own university and your state as well. So please go ahead, just a little bit of, so that people would have a better idea.
Sure. I'm from Ohio, which is in the Midwest part of the United States. So we are very well known for our affordability.
Wow.
So tuition, generally, you will find that it ranges between 20 and 30,000 USD per year for a university that's public. And then, of course, we have cost of living, which is usually on campus 10,000 USD roughly. So that really brings your total to between 30,000 USD and 40,000 USD. But just keep in mind that we also have scholarship opportunities that will help kind of shrink some of those costs and make it even more affordable than other states.
Wow, that's wonderful. And for people who are out there, ladies and gentlemen, before we actually start to, talk about their, stay over here in Karachi and Lahore and what they have been, where they have been going around and what sort of food they have consumed, ladies and gentlemen, you can always log on to educationusa.pk/US University Fair, and you can get all the details as well. But having said that, let's move to Karachi now. So all of you have been to Karachi?
Yes.
Yes, all right. How was
Except
it?
me, no, I wasn't there.
All right, so I think I'm going to start with Raldi over here. How was Karachi? Did you like it there?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is my first time in Pakistan. I've been to like so many different countries in the world, over 20 different countries, but Pakistan is just, it hits you quite differently from other countries. And I think I've been having a lot of cultural moments where it's just been an amazing experience. And I'm doing it with a lot of my fellow colleagues from all over the United States. And so I think the most memorable part of Karachi, I think, is we went to a restaurant, a Kolachi, I think, what was it?
Yeah, Karachi.
Yeah, which was breathtaking. On the water, the birds, the food was magical. The staff just kept pouring food faster than I can consume the food. And I just couldn't tell them to stop because everything was new to me.
Yeah.
I was slightly getting nervous that, oh my God, what if my body reacts differently to this food? But I just told them to keep it coming.
Yeah.
So that was a great highlight for me for Karachi.
Did you try seafood over there? Because we love the seafood in Karachi, crabs and crab cutlets, and there's so many things.
I probably did at one point. It was probably on my plate, and I was just like taking things one at a time.
Yeah.
I probably was there something.
Wow, that's wonderful. What about you, Jamila? So how was Karachi for you?
Karachi was amazing. It was actually my third time in the city. So, and I also enjoyed Karachi with Raldi. I love the spicy food. It's so good. And just everyone in Karachi is so kind and very curious, but very welcoming to Pakistan.
Wow.
So coming back to Mr. Yuan, so I really wanted to ask you, because the purpose behind all of these student exchange program, and obviously every year US government pump a lot of money into these program, and obviously it projects the soft power into it. And they started back in 1960s. Obviously that was a Cold War era, and then there was two blocs were competing against each other. But sort of why is there a need for such sort of exposure program now, if I talk about it, because the Cold War is over, yes, and America is the only dominant power, superpower in the world. So if I may ask, like a journalist, like a hardcore journalist, if you are sitting in front of a congressional committee and you have to justify it, please go ahead.
Okay. I mean, exchange programs.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
No, to answer your question, I think, educational programs, especially exchanges, they're invaluable. They're valuable to the extent there is no price to it. For example, when Pakistanis, so the reality is not a lot of Americans come to Pakistan, which, we need to encourage more to come. So one way that we can do that is to bring Pakistanis to the U.S. so that the American people can see what Pakistani people are like. For example, my experience has been really incredible. I mean, 18 months ago, I came to Pakistan and I had a really completely different view. I'll be honest, I thought I was coming to a desert. And then to my surprise, it was very green. Islamabad is very beautiful. And then one thing that really stuck with me and has stuck with me is how diverse Pakistan is. For example, like people from GB, from Balochistan, from Sindh, and then you learn a lot of these like small details about a country when you actually get to live in it. And so what I've been doing as the assistant cultural attaché for exchanges is to make sure that when we do these exchanges that we're recruiting as much diversity into them, so that when we send them to the US, the American people are exposed to the diversity of Pakistan, because this is really the only time that a lot of Americans get to see Pakistan is when they meet a Pakistani in the United States. And so you can't put a price to that. And I think that actually is also another way where these Pakistanis go to the US, they meet these American families, they meet the American people, and then they come back to Pakistan and they become a credible voice on the ground. They get to talk about their experience in the US and say, hey, it's not what you think. This is my experience. And you can't, and that experience and that connection is irreplaceable.
And can you share some examples about, maybe I asked this question to Ms. Jamila here, is how those cultural exchanges have entirely changed the perception of different people from different ethnicities, from different backgrounds who are coming to United States, if you want to share any particular story about it.
Yeah, we have every semester a student from Pakistan come to my institution, and it's amazing to see how they speak so highly of Pakistan and how many Americans just have a specific view beforehand, and after they meet this student, they have a completely different perspective. It really creates a lot of peace and understanding, and I think that that's an invaluable experience both for the student that's coming to the US, but also for Americans to be able to meet Pakistanis and have those interactions, like you said, that really wouldn't happen otherwise.
Exactly, and it does feel great as well. So imagine, I still remember that I was there when it was Cinco de Mayo. I think that's what we call it, and everybody loved it. And it certainly after a little while, nobody kind of thinks about it where you from as well. But having said that, I think I would certainly want to thank the US government as well for bringing us this wonderful opportunities where, ladies and gentlemen, I think education really needs to be a global common, and every country out there really need to open their doors for people to come learn and do whatever they want to do in their lives as well. And such is an example of the US government. They've been doing it over here in Pakistan. Every year they're sending 800 more students, and not just students. I think people like me and Hajra are going, lawyers are going, doctors are going, and everybody is going, making sure that they're going to learn more. And the more you learn, ladies and gentlemen, the more you will have expertise, the more you will be to do better in life as well. But having said that, very quickly, because you've left out Lahore and Islamabad, so you've been in Islamabad, what have you been eating in the last 18 months? Did you try kadai?
Yes, I like biryani.
Yeah.
I like kabali palau.
Yeah, kabli pulao.
I like the lamb karahi.
Yeah.
So,
Mutton kadai.
the food is amazing here.
And what about the fruits? Because
fruits?
Pakistan
Yeah,
has
the fruits
very
are good
fresh,
here.
Oh,
fresh
yeah.
fruits here,
No, the
Organic
pomegranate's really good, the mangoes. I mean, I've never drank as much juice as I've drunk here because it's so fresh and so delicious.
That's true.
Here.
And and you know what,
organic,
your skin is actually telling the truth because it's glowing all the way. And making sure wonderful. Jamila, what about Lahore and Islamabad?
Oh, the food has been so amazing. I've had tawa chicken in Lahore, and that was really good.
So you like spices?
I do love spices, and there's a lot of them here. Also, all the breads and just the desserts are amazing too.
Wow, that's wonderful. Aldi, what about you?
So I think for me, when
Are you a foodie, first of all?
Oh, to a degree, yeah. I love to travel and just eat food. But one of my students from Pakistan actually gave me a mission, and all I had to do here was, one, to recruit more students, and two, try oranges.
Yeah.
And the oranges, every single day so far, I've always been ordering fresh squeezed orange juice, and it is just so different from the United States.
And we have a different way of consuming oranges over here. So we actually want it to be a sunny day. Then we climb up the roof of our house. Then we take a little bit of chaat masala or kala namak, black salt, and then we dip a little bit of our orange in it, and then we consume it. Try it. Please make sure that once you leave from here, that you go give it a try. It's a sunny day out there on a Tuesday. But thank you very much to all of you for coming down to Pakistan, for making sure that you're going to make our children's future more bright, that you're going to help us understand that how these cultural exchange programs will take place. Once again, I'm going to give away this website as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the website happens to be educationusa.pk/US University Fair. Please make sure to log in to check more about it as well. Hajar, do you want to say something?
I think the cross-cultural exchanges are a wonderful way of expanding your horizons, of diversifying your opinions, and obviously of learning a lot, because I do remember my father kept saying that when you leave the Islamabad airport from here, you learn a lot. And it's just about how different people react to different situations, how they learn, and always adopt good habits of different civilization. And this is how you learn. So until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning.
Have a great day.